feel a little odd because I'm following another Mike who also had an oddly sexual related story, but mine is a little different. So hopefully it'll go over. A little backstory. This is in the heady days of Friendster and Texas Hold'em poker being popular. Like 5 years ago, basically. I had a brief encounter at a bar with a friend of mine. She had a friend visiting from out of town. Got a little drunk mostly, and ended up making out and pursuing her sexually on my friend's couch. All for the good though. She invites me to come visit her in Minneapolis when she goes back out of town. So I excuse me. I don't really talk to her much afterwards. I figured that was probably just this one fun night we had. And I don't particularly want to go to Minneapolis. But I'll go anywhere for 3 reasons. 3 excuses. If I had 2 more excuses to go to Minneapolis, I would totally go to Minneapolis. Turns out I am also super into poker, as I mentioned. A friend of mine informs me that there's a poker house just outside of Minneapolis that does weekend tournaments every weekend, Sunday, $50 buy-in, tons of people, huge money to be won. 2 reasons. Well, randomly on the internets, a friend of mine sends me a link to a Friendster profile. I check it out, and I'm looking over, looks like, it's a pretty girl. She's tall, skinny, lithe, very modelly. I'm looking over her interests, and her interests are tall, bald, white guys with big noses. And I don't know if you noticed when I came up, but I have what I like to refer to as distinctive features. So I read a little further, and she's into tattoos. None of those, unfortunately. I get to the bottom, and she has a little part at the bottom that says, "I also love to give blowjobs." And I think to myself, what a coincidence. Because I love to get blowjobs. So I send her a message. Obviously, I just have to send this person a message. Her name is Inari, by the way. I look at the rest of her pictures at this point because, I want to know who it is that wants to give me a blowjob, obviously from across the world. And she is gorgeous. Drop dead gorgeous. Every picture is actually her on some runway modeling. Tall, skinny, beautiful, maybe like Spanish and South African or something. Really, really interesting, unique features. I send her some, the good South African, not the bad South African. So I send her a message, and we discuss back and forth for a little while, and eventually it gets to the point where she says, "Well, you should come to Minneapolis, and I will give you a blowjob." Reason number 3. Like 5 minutes later, I'm all over Expedia booking my tickets. I head up there 2 weeks later. I don't mention at the time to the girl with whom I had the tryst earlier in the story, but she has offered to let me stay with her, and I figure it's probably not an appropriate time to tell her that I'm going to go get this blowjob. I head up there. We hang out. It's early in the afternoon on a Friday. She's made some plans with her local Minneapolis friends for us to go out for drinks later on. I feel like I have to come clean because I'm going to have to go meet this woman at some point and receive reason number 3 for going to Minneapolis. So I come, I tell her the story, and she says, "That's an incredible story. Awesome, you go get that blowjob." And I said, "Brilliant. This is great. Like, this could not work out any better. I made the right decision from the beginning to come up here." So I get back online. I send this girl, Inari, some messages, and I'm like, "Well, tell me where you're going. Tell me where you're going to be tonight." She's like, "Well, I'm working. I get cut at 10. I cocktail waitress at this fancy bar downtown." And she tells me the name. I've forgotten the name now, but it's the only fancy bar in Minneapolis. So I explain where we're going or where I need to be that evening to my host, and she says, "Oh, well, that's funny. That's where we're going for drinks." I say, "Perfect." It's like God has handed me the perfect weekend. So her friends gradually arrive at the house in preparation for us to go out for our drinks. One friend comes in. She, of course, tells the story immediately, is super excited. Everybody's super pumped. I show pictures. We're all into this. Finally, her final friend comes over. I explain the story. She says, oh, what's her name again? Oh, Inari. She's like, really? Let me see her. Let me see her. I show her the picture. She takes a look for a second, looks at me, and she goes, honey, I'm really sorry, but that is a man. So I think to myself, well, I've come this far. So I'm gonna go meet her. I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna meet her. We get to the bar, and sadly it turns out she's been cut already. But for about 5 minutes, I stood outside that bar, working up my courage to go in there and accept what God had handed to me, only to have it snatched away at the last second. That's it.